KEET-TV and the League of Women Voters of Humboldt County present a forum for candidates running to represent the 4th District of Humboldt County Board of Supervisors. Viewers may submit questions during this forum by calling 707-445-0811. This forum is also being streamed live at our KEET.org website. And now your moderator from the League of Women Voters, Ann Hartline.
Good evening. I'm Ann Hartline with the League of Women Voters of Humboldt County. I'd like to welcome all our viewers tonight for a live candidates forum with the 3 candidates for the office of County Board of Supervisors, District 4. Candidates with us this evening are Natalie Arroyo, Mike Newman, and Kim Bergel. The League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan political organization, encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League never endorses candidates or political parties. We do take positions on issues after extensive study and member consensus. The League is dedicated to providing impartial information about voting and the political process. Before we begin our forum this evening, I'd like to share a little something with our candidates and the viewing audience. 32 years ago, it was suggested to the League of Women Voters of Humboldt County Board that we have televised candidate forums. Board President Judy Bennett met with St. Clair Adams, Executive Director of KEET-TV at that time, and he agreed. And so began our KEET partnership of candidate forums that we're experiencing today. A few years later, Carol Masterson, also a League board member, took over the job of facilitating these events with KEET. This past January, we lost Carol to leukemia. So I want to take this moment to express our gratitude for all she did to make these forums a success. We now have an entire committee doing what Carol did by herself for over 25 years. Thank you, Carol, and thank you, KEET-TV. So to continue, League members are serving tonight as phone volunteers, question sorters, timekeeper, and courier. Their names will appear in the credits after the program. As question sorters, we have Deborah Downs and Tracy Jordan French. Phone answerers, we have Maggie Augustine, Debbie Hartman, and Debbie Hartridge. Runner, we have Marianne Banson. And for timer, we have Ann Deal. Since our program tonight will include the use of questions called in from the viewing public, I encourage you to begin calling in your questions to 707-445-0811. Our volunteers are waiting to take your calls. The format for tonight's forum will be as possible. Each candidate will be given a maximum of 1 minute to respond to questions previously sent to the League of Women Voters of Humboldt County or phoned in by the viewing public. At the end of the question period, each candidate will have the opportunity to make a 2-minute closing statement. The candidates have drawn lots to determine the order of closing statements. Before we begin, I want to state the job description for the Board of Supervisors is to pass legislation, administer services and programs, approve budgets, hire staff, and set policy. The salary range for this position is $97,710 to $108,453. So, we will now begin the question portion of our forum, and we will begin with Natalie Arroyo. Our first question is, as a county supervisor, your job will be to make decisions that impact the entire county. How will you deal with meeting the needs of the entire county versus the specific needs of the city of Eureka? Natalie, we'll begin with you.
Good evening. I've learned over the years in Humboldt County through my diverse experience to collaborate and to compromise when needed, and to work well with a wide variety of people on improving our community. I believe we need not just a county-wide perspective, but a regional perspective on many of our biggest issues. And I've worked all over the county over 15 plus years managing millions of dollars in projects and facilitating public meetings throughout the county. So I've experienced the culture and the quality of life kind of throughout our county and can speak to some of those experiences a little more as we go through tonight. I've collaborated with all of the current supervisors on work throughout the county over the last few years, and have collaborated with community leaders, tribes, special districts, and county staff. I have strong relationships and I'm ready to hit the ground running. So I hope that tonight I'll be able to show you why I'm the best choice for District 4.
Kim Bergel, your response to this question, please.
Thank you. So I would say that I would behave just as I do currently. One of the things that I have been known to do is to reach out to experts, constituents, and do my research. You know, we have a unique area here in Humboldt County, and I've worked with different tribes and different areas to move forward. I grew up here, so I've got a lot of connections with different people on different levels, a lot of people that just live here and have opinions and needs. And so I think that that will be an important piece of moving forward and making my decisions, is having those folks to rely upon, as well as working with the current people that I do work with to move things forward. You know, working with the city, working with some of the supervisors has been a really education for me, and I really appreciate that time. And I look forward to—
Newman, your response, please.
Thank you, Ann. I've been on the city council before, and during that time, it was the whole city. But I always kept in mind that during that time, as Eureka goes, so does Humboldt County. Translate back now to present, which the past 4 years I've been on the county's Planning Commission, and although I've been appointed by the 4th District Supervisor, Virginia Bass, I have always kept into play all of the county's needs, because those decisions are far-reaching. As a supervisor, you do keep in mind your constituents, but you want to keep in mind the big picture. And I believe I have shown that I have kept those big picture ideas as well as decisions in mind, because those decisions have repercussions.
All right, we'll go move to our next question. And that question is, what would you do to improve transportation options in Eureka and throughout the county? And for this question, we will begin with Mike Newman.
Thank you, Ann. It's difficult up here with transportation. We have some bus lines, we have other ways there. Most people like to have their cars. We could look at the bus transportation closer. I know that that is a constant review every year, looking at how many are riding versus the bus levels. So for having transportation here, we really need to keep an eye on the regular vehicle traffic counts in that, so that we are not clogging up our streets. We do have pedestrian ways, and we do have bike lanes right now on J Street and on Harris and 6th and 7th, some of our major arteries there. So I will keep an open idea for what we need.
Natalie Arroyo, will you please respond to this question?
Thank you. Transportation is one of those issues that's really near and dear to my heart and actually makes me light up when I talk about it. I'm the former board president of the Humboldt Trails Council, and I'm currently the board chair of the Humboldt Transit Authority, as well as sitting on the Policy Advisory Committee for our Regional Transportation Agency. So I'm really familiar with our regional transportation plans, many of our assets, and some of the things that we need to do to improve. We also have many, many miles of roadways that need a lot of maintenance and need to be more complete streets that serve all users and all modes modes of transportation. So that will be first and foremost on my mind. I would say maybe not the first thing, but it's certainly a top priority for me. And I've made it a platform item in my campaign to improve transportation safety throughout the region. Unfortunately, we're really high on the list of counties in the state that have pedestrian injuries and fatalities, bicycle injuries and fatalities, and DUI. So those are all issues that I think we need to take a closer look at to make sure that we have safe transportation throughout our county.
Kim Bergel, your response, please.
Thank you. Yes, you know, I was on the Transportation Safety Commission for 4 or 5 years prior to my terms on council, and I spent a lot of time on my bike. That's how I ended up being on the commission. That's usually the way that I get involved with things, is that I experience them and I want to make a change and I show up and do that. So with that, we created a program. It was called the Heads Up program. It was very successful with all the collisions that were happening at the time. Unfortunately, this is the type of thing that you have to stay with. You have to really keep the education moving forward. You know, we worked with the city to make a lot of improvements when I was on that commission, near the zoo, different areas such as that, F Street, near the golf course. And what I would say is that there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. Transportation safety is critical in our area for pedestrians, bikes, and we need to find a balance with vehicles. Vehicles are going to be phasing out over time with climate change, but it's very important that we move forward.
All right, for our next question, our next question will be, what do you think is the biggest obstacle from local government that hinders businesses? And we'll start with Kim Bergel for that question.
Thank you. So I think that there are several issues. One of the issues, and probably the one with the most impacts that affects business, is mental health. And I know that sounds silly, but the truth is that 60% of the problems in our region, I believe, are based on mental health and lack of services. You know, we have businesses calling us regularly about people walking in the streets, breaking their windows, doing all of these things. And with proper mental health and programming, we can affect positive change in that regard. I've been very involved in that my whole career on council and prior to that. And I believe that we can affect positive change through working with folks. And currently I'm working with a couple of people to find a location for the triage center happening in Eureka, or with the county and Eureka. I was involved in Uplift Eureka, CSET. So there are programs that I've been involved in to work with mental health. And I think it's really important that we continue to move forward however we can to mitigate those issues.
Mike Newman, will you please respond to the question?
Yes, thank you, Ann. I think the biggest obstacle that government has for keeping businesses from succeeding is too many rules and regulations. Less government is more important. We do need to help businesses from having the mentally ill and homeless park and be camped in their doorways and that. So I've been a big proponent of recovery and helping have programs available for those that are in need of help. One of the other things I wanted to address back to transportation is that'll help businesses as well, which is the traffic flow, especially in downtown. With these bulb outs, it's very hard to turn and maneuver. We also need to start writing more tickets in the county as well as in the cities.
And Natalie Arroyo, your response, please.
Thank you. I think I would agree that some of the most challenging situations for businesses that I often hear about have to do with confusing processes and red tape. So I understand that we need to do a better job of communicating our process, making sure that streamlining is happening where it can. Sometimes there's siloing within government agencies for the purposes of protecting privacy or for specific reasons. But where we can improve processes and make them more clear and streamlined, we need to do that. When it comes to economic development in our community, I also think that lack of housing is something that government has created as an obstacle, past elected bodies haven't moved quickly enough to create the opportunities to develop more housing and to change our zoning and our land use policies to allow for more housing. And now we're seeing a time when, our workforce housing is just inadequate for our needs. So I think that is hurting business recruitment very substantially in our community.
Oh, thank you. I want to remind the viewing public to please phone in your questions at 707-445-0811. All right, for our next question, our next question will be, please state, or this is a statement, please state your views on citizen oversight of law enforcement and the composition of a Citizens Law Enforcement Review Board. And we'll start with Mike Newman on that question. Or that statement.
Yes, Ann, thank you. It is important to have some oversight. I know the body cams are important as well, but having the input from the public to take a look at what has been decided upon or what is going on is, I know that our interim police chief, Todd Jarvis, is very open to hearing from the public and having input. That doesn't mean that the committee or the oversight board would have the last say, but they should have, and will have some input as to how things transpire and what our police and our sheriff will be doing for procedures in the future. It is important to hear the public and to hear complaints. Very important.
Kim Bergel, your response to the question, please.
Thank you. Yes, so I would say that one of the frustrations that I've had being a council member is that we haven't been able to necessarily give information that the public wants. I believe that the Oversight Committee needs to be a diverse committee. We need to have a diverse group of people, different races, different cultures, so that we can get a more a well-rounded team moving forward, because everybody has different needs and different perspectives. I think, too, that it will be important for us to, though it's important to maybe have one police officer on there, maybe two, it's important that we have people that are just regular people that want to be involved. We live in a community where community involvement is critical for a healthy community. And so what I would say is that I think it's important that these folks are put together to look over reports and to be able to report out what we can. And I would also like to look for ways to be able to put out more information. Thank you.
Natalie Arroyo, your thoughts, please.
Well, thanks for this important question. In the city of Eureka, we've certainly spent time improving the process and creating a community oversight of police practices board. And over the years, in my time on council, that board has changed in its composition and in its role. And I think right now we have the strongest one that we've had yet. So I'm looking forward to that additional measure for increasing transparency and trust in government. We've also done a lot of other policing reforms that have been tough, and we'll be looking forward to doing an independent audit, developing an alternative response team for mental health clinicians to respond to cases. And ultimately, when it comes to the county, I understand, of course, I won't be working in the same role. I'll be needing to work with the separately elected sheriff and the sheriff's deputies. So I think we can work together on a format that increases public trust and understanding of the process, while also, protecting the rights of community members and of law enforcement.
For our next question is, what do you think will be the biggest driving force for our county's economy for the next 10 years? And we'll start with that with Natalie Arroyo.
Absolutely. Well, I'm pretty excited about our economic development opportunities over the next 10 years. We've really, as I mentioned earlier, we've really seen a need for more housing. We also have a need for more staffing in our community. So we're really looking at a picture that's quite different from when I first came into office, where we were really trying to recruit big industries and big firms. And now we know that there are big industries and big firms coming our way in the form of offshore wind, in the form of aquaculture, in the expansion of Cal Poly Humboldt and some of the developments development that'll be associated with that. But now we need to work really closely and think about how we're getting people housed and how we're actually bringing people in this community to strengthen our medical sector, education sector, and many more areas, building trades. So those are all opportunities for us, but also challenges over the next few years as we see a big transformation in our community of our key industries and what kinds of challenges we're facing with economic development.
Mike Newman, your response, please.
I think the biggest driving force for our economy in Humboldt County in the next 10 years will be the fiber optic line coming over the Pacific and opening up the world to high speed, opening us up to the high speed and having people be able to work from their homes or small offices, satellite offices, so to speak, from firms down the Bay Area or more urban areas. So we'll be seeing more people from out of the area, which that translates into housing. And that's one of the things that has always been on my mind is we need to streamline and relax the housing elements. We also have Cal Poly coming with the building trades and CR and the high schools as part of the Workforce Development Board for over 10 years. Those type of things were very important and started there at CR.
Natalie Bergel, your thoughts, please. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Pardon me. Kim Bergel, your thoughts, please.
Thank you. Thank you. So there are a few things that I see building us in a correct direction. One of those things is, we have, the wind energy coming in, we have Nordic coming in, and I would love to have more companies like Nordic that actually work with the public, that actually listen to the environmental impacts and do something different about them. This growth with Cal Poly Humboldt is very exciting. And the fiber optics as well. We need to also be able to have ways in and out of our region. So, the airport development is going to be important to that. And just housing for all. So currently, as we all know, we are in a housing crisis. And I think the city's been very creative in finding ways to think outside the box to find ways for housing. And I think we can continue doing that with the county. There are no bad ideas in brainstorming. And I think looking at all ideas for housing is beneficial because we don't just need low income or very low income. We need workforce housing. We need high-end housing.
Thank you. And again, I apologize for messing up on your name. I'll do my best not to do that again. All right, for our next question is, worsening droughts in Southern California are heightening pressure for more water diversions from Northern California. What actions will you take and or support to fight these diversions? And we'll start with Kim Bergel.
Thank you. So I've lived in Humboldt my whole life. And I remember times, it was probably back in the 70s when we were fighting this very similar thing. Moving forward, I think it's really important to work together in our region and up in the northern part to really work together to eliminate this problem from even being brought forward again, though it will be again and again. I think that with research and with, again, reaching out to the experts, that we can get involved in many ways to mitigate this problem. I believe that we're very fortunate living in Humboldt that we have the waterways that we need and that we can maintain that. But I also think it's important that we keep that. And I would be willing and will be willing to stand forward and do what I can to eliminate that problem through working with other people and collaborating to make this a reality for Humboldt. No water diversions.
Natalie Arroyo, your thoughts, please.
Well, I'll work collaboratively with the members of the Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District. A few of them are already endorsers and supporters of me because they know that I understand many of the water rights issues in California. They are very complex, but I have experience in environmental planning, and understanding water rights and working with these issues. So that's something that they recognize in me and that I'll bring to the table. Interestingly, we really need to continue to demonstrate that we have uses for our water here in Humboldt. And I know that healthy watersheds and healthy fisheries, there's no excess water. There really isn't in our, our river systems. That they are heavy rainfall at certain times of year and low rainfall Mediterranean climate in the summer. So there is no, quote, excess water. But in our water rights allocation system, that's always a risk. So we need to show that we have legitimate industrial uses in our community, as well as a need for water in our rivers to keep our fisheries healthy and our rivers pristine.
Mike Newman, your thoughts on this matter, please.
Yes, thank you, Ann. My thoughts are, yes, we need to keep our water here, but we do need to show that it is in use, in good use. I, too, have several endorsers that are on the Humboldt Bay Municipal Water Board that are important, and that they know that I will fight to keep our water here. We need our fisheries strong. We need to keep the water here as much as we can. Sending it to Sacramento or LA is not a good solution. We have to keep our fisheries strong and viable, both in our streams and rivers, as well as out in the ocean. It all ties in together. Our fishermen need our help, and our tourism need our help too, because we do still have people coming here to fish our waterways. We want to keep that water flowing. The eel is starting to come back. We need it more back.
Our next question. Many studies have cited grave concerns about sea level rise in Humboldt Bay. What actions would you advocate for to begin to deal with this seemingly huge problem? And we'll start with Natalie Arroyo.
Absolutely. So one of the things we need to do is improve our wetlands and restore wetlands so that they can create additional capacity for sea level rise and buffer some of the impacts of sea level rise in our community. We're working on that already, but there's so much opportunity for it in our community. We also, I think, need to think about managed retreat in certain locations. There are many areas of the county and some areas within District 4 where managed retreat is going to be necessary, which means really pulling back from the shoreline and also thinking about the infrastructure that's underneath the ground that keeps us supplied with water and sewer infrastructure and all that important infrastructure that's often undergrounded. We need to think about where that's vulnerable and how we can maintain it moving forward. And when it comes to development, we need to be thinking about the sea level rise projections in all of our decisions, while also considering interim uses for coastal areas so that we can get some benefit from them in the interim period of time.
Kim Bergel, your response, please.
Thank you. So we are seeing negative impacts from sea level rise and climate change, and I just want to say that climate change is real. I think that's a really important thing that people need to realize and understand. I'm not a scientist. I don't have a lot of information on climate change, but I can tell you that I love Humboldt County. I love where I live, and I'm willing to work diligently to keep her pristine and beautiful and to avoid the negative impacts that sea level rise will bring to our region. You know, I have listened to Alderman and his reports. I've listened to different people. I've seen it firsthand as I go to the beach and notice the problems that we're having. And one thing about me is that I get in the trenches. I'm willing to look and do the work and make things happen. And so, you know, this is something that is very important, and it's critical, and it's something that I will work diligently to improve.
Mike Newman, your response, please.
Thank you, Ann. I appreciate the question. It is important to update our dikes that we have around here. It is very important to keep the land that we've got currently. Having the dikes reinforced, bringing in as much help from the federal government as well as the state to help shore up Humboldt Bay area here and along our rivers. But it's very important to not let it, the private lands be sucked up with water. We have a lot of farmers and dairymen, especially in the dairies area in the Ferndale area, that if we let dikes go and all of this go, they will be losing a lot of their grazing land. So it's important to keep that in mind. I will look at many other options as well.
Our next question, homelessness is a huge problem throughout Humboldt County and in Eureka. What plans would you hope to implement to deal with this problem? And our first response will be from Mike Newman.
Thank you for the question. It's important to expand on the mental health items. We have a lot of people in the street that are in need of help. Some won't accept help, but many will once they are diagnosed or helped. Housing is very important on that as well. We have in the plans, I'm part of the St. Joseph Providence Community Benefit Board that has been going with 4 big directions. One of them is mental health, one of them is housing. We've had several of the motels. Providence, St. Joseph has contributed many dollars towards to rehab. In fact, the Humboldt Inn there on 4th Street is one of the ones that is still in the midst of being rehabbed with more facilities there.
Our next response will be from Natalie Arroyo.
Well, we all know housing is a huge challenge in Humboldt, but we need to employ some specific strategies to improve the quantity and quality of housing as well as meet community member needs. And that includes, of course, permanent supportive housing and crisis care facilities to meet the needs of those who can't just have a roof over their heads, they also need those supportive services. And it means quite a lot of public-private partnerships to address the gaps in creating more housing. So that means things like accessory dwelling unit financing programs, supporting development through incentives like the transfer of development rights or infrastructure financing districts in places where that's suitable. And then we also need shorter-term strategies for safe parking and tiny houses on wheels, things that can get people housed fairly quickly and on the path towards more permanent housing. So I think those are all strategies we need to be employing. We also need to take another look at land use and zoning to make sure that everywhere that housing can be developed, it is at least slated for potential development.
Kim Bergel, your response, please.
Thank you. So I think probably the most important thing I want to say about this question is that all people have value. Mentally ill, not mentally ill, all people have value. I've been working, I kind of Forrest Gumped my way into it. I didn't mean to get involved with the homeless population, but that kind of happened for me in my beginning stages of on council. And I've worked a lot with the population. You know, some good things that are happening in our county. Laura's Law, there's a pilot program now that works with folks who are gravely and mentally disabled. They have a sponsor like the judge, who the judge kind of oversees their program. Care Court is coming down from Governor Newsom. We're working on a navigation center here in Humboldt and Eureka. We're working on a triage center here in Humboldt County. All of these things are important. But we also, it's critical that we have housing and housing with wraparound services. Again, to say that somebody that's been on the streets for 2 to 5 years could live in housing without support, it doesn't work.
At this moment, I want to remind our viewers to please phone in your questions to 707-445-0811. Our next question, is there anything the Board of Supervisors could do to bring in more health professionals and improve general health services in the county? And we'll start with Kim Bergel.
Thank you. This is a great question. So, you know, I think part of the problem is you know, when at Humboldt State, when we eliminated the nursing program, that was a detrimental to our region. But in bringing more professionals, I think it's going to be really important that we have a safe hospital for folks to work in, and we're discussing that now. Housing for all people. And again, you know, there's high-end housing, there's all different kinds of housing that needs to be put in place. Incentives, and then just, you know, I think that Humboldt County stands alone as in its beauty, and it draws a lot of people here. In keeping people, we need to have great pay, we need to have a place for people to be, and we need to really accentuate the positive things of our region.
Mike Newman, your thoughts, please.
Would you repeat the question?
I will. Is there anything the Board of Supervisors could do to bring in more health professionals and improve general health services?
That really is not a government type of function. That is private enterprise. We can, as government officials, make it easier to build homes. That is one of the important things, to bring in more of the professionals and the doctors and all of the nursing that we need help with. Housing is critical of all types. The IHAND is very important. Our area is very unique, and it is a way that is very attractive to many of these physicians once they get past trying to find a place to live. There also needs to be more of the shopping and some of the other areas, more of the theater. We need to see the theater open back up, our live arts. And I think I see that starting to come up right now with HSU and the Arkley Center.
Natalie Arroyo, your thoughts, please.
This is a really high priority issue, and I know a lot of people have talked to me about it recently. We have a role in facilitating the conversation with the stakeholders that are involved in healthcare decisions. So while we may not directly hire very many, doctors or nurses, although there are some health services, provided by the county. There are actually many health services provided by the county. But when it comes to the growth in our medical sector of private businesses or nonprofits, we really have a role in facilitating that conversation. And in the city of Eureka, I did just that many years ago, bringing together people at City Hall to talk about creating a family medicine residency program. And while I can't take much credit for that actually having happened, we did start the conversation and bring people together to talk about it. So that's a huge role for the county supervisors. And then identifying Humboldt in the highest tier of need for rural providers to attract new providers is really important, as well as participating in partnerships to seek grant funding for our region to address our biggest challenges that limit the growth of our medical sector.
Our next question, in your opinion, what are the biggest infrastructure needs in the county? And we'll start with Mike Newman.
Some of our biggest infrastructure needs are our bridges that need to be repaired and replaced. Also our roads. Those have been deteriorating for the past few years here. So those are a couple of the biggest things. The other thing that is very important to do, which we have started on that road, and as a member of the RREDC, the Redwood Regional Economic and Development Corporation, we helped bring other airlines to Humboldt County, to the airport there. With Greg Foster's help, with his diligence and drive, we were able to attract many other destinations, which is super important to help this area for flying in and flying out. It's important that those professionals that are working from home have a way to get into the urban areas or cross state in order to meet with their offices.
Kim Bergel, your thoughts, please.
Thank you. Yes, so infrastructure can mean a lot of different things. Certainly, road repair is important, and I think Eureka is on the right track in that regard. We passed Measure H back in 2020, I I think it was, maybe 2019, and we are seeing great improvements. And I think that we can build on what we've learned from that. I think, though, when we're looking at infrastructure, one of the bigger pieces is infill and looking at housing again and having opportunities for, creating housing for everybody. And not only that, but providing opportunities for people to fix up some of the dilapidated houses, giving incentives for folks that have property and homes that are unwilling to do anything with them because of tax credits. Those types of situations, we need to continue to find more ways to promote housing and to increase our housing so that we can have a healthier region and a healthier area.
Natalie Arroyo, your response, please.
Well, we sure have a lot of public works needs in Humboldt County, and thankfully we have robust plans like our regional transportation plan and many other planning documents that lay out some of the high priorities. So I think we need to use a data-driven approach, and that can look like, assessing our pavement condition and combining that with the plans that we already have in place to really address things systematically and when they need to be replaced and upgraded. And those needs are extensive, but I also think we need to not just be responsive to who is the loudest, but to kind of stick to our plans. We also need to collaborate on a regional level to address sewage treatment challenges. We really do have a lot of them in our region. And I think that's something that is going to take a multi-stakeholder approach, and special districts and cities can't do it alone. So the county could be a leader in that. We also have a need for a more robust transportation system that considers all modes and supports all modes of travel. So that is something that's a high priority for me as well.
Our next question, what would you do as a supervisor to make sure the marijuana code enforcement money collected is transparent, and how will it be utilized? And for that, we will start with Natalie Arroyo.
Well, I will say that there have been concerns that I've heard throughout Humboldt County in my work over the last several years in particular about Measure S funds and where they go and how they're utilized and what the public process is. And I think people feel disappointed that they thought they were going to have more of a say in that process. So this really speaks to county budgeting as a whole and how important it is to ensure that we use processes to make sure that stakeholders feel that they have an input and people feel that there's a responsible use of those tax dollars. I think we could be more innovative. We've talked a little bit in the last forum about participatory budgeting, as well as other ways to be more transparent about the county budget. The budget roadshow is something that I would love to see brought back, but have that be a little bit expanded so that people can really dig into the questions and the data that they have around those. So we also certainly need to see restoration be a priority, as well as marketing for the cannabis sector, and those are appropriate uses for those funds as well.
Mike Newman, your response, please.
Well, we need transparency in those tax dollars as much as possible. But they go to the general fund. They are very important for abatement, for bringing back our land from being raped, basically. A lot of that money is going towards that, as well as regular funds towards the general fund. I would like to see the participatory budget process as well. I know the budget roadshow was very popular. I would like to see it more useful online as well as in person. I know that when I participated in that several years ago for multiple times, there was a lot of interest in there and a lot of the public was there. I think we can expand on that a lot more with Zoom and some of the other ways that we've learned.
Kim Bergel, your thoughts, please.
Thank you. I do agree that enhancing public participation in any way we can is super important to our community. It brings people together, which is important. And that way we can have conversations and build a stronger community. As far as the monies, with Measure S, I think that, it has been quite disappointing. I think that much of what's been happening with cannabis has been very disappointing, from the lack of marketing promised by the county to the lack of transparency with the funds. You know, I think that the monies, though, should be used for education and mental health, as well as abatement and restoration of the properties that have been damaged by illegal grows. I think we need to continue to work together to talk about what the priorities of the community are. And I think that the four that I just mentioned, mental health, education, abatement, and restoration, are all important avenues to pursue.
In order for us to finish on time, this will be the last question that we will be asked of our candidates. This is kind of a longer question. The Department of Health and Human Services mental health is short-staffed. Thus, patients are boarded in our local hospital emergency departments, sometimes instead of jail. The result is a disruption of our care in the local emergency departments, increased violence against nurses, and nurses resigning. What would you do to improve mental health care provided in our community and to support our local hospital emergency departments? And we'll start with that question, or that response from Kim Bergel.
Thank you. This is a very important issue, and I've been working on it for quite a while now. You know, we've been talking about a lot of different avenues of support. We've got the Navigation Center, but you know, the problem is that we need to really take a look at what is working and what is not. And looking at a triage center as a kind of in-between situation, so you can either have the mental health or the hospital. You know, it is not acceptable that 3 weeks ago, 6 nurses were assaulted. That is not acceptable. And the same thing happens at Supervisor. So I think that we need to look at policy and implement new ways to mitigate the problem. I've recommended a chill room. It was brought to my attention where mental health patients can be separated from the general population in the emergency room, have security and a clinician with them as they navigate, you know, with stabilization. But certainly this triage center, I think, is going to be very important to our community, and I look forward to finding a place for that.
Natalie Arroyo, your response, please.
Well, this is an incredibly important issue that I've also heard directly from nurses' families about, and the impacts that it has had on their lives. So I absolutely concur that we don't want anyone working in an unsafe situation. Those are critically important jobs in the ER and in our local healthcare facilities and within DHHS, and people can't be exposed to risk like that. So we have an obligation as employers of those within DHHS, which I hope to be, and those who work within our local community to make sure there's safety. To that end, you know, advocating for increased funding for security, whether that is a combination of funding from the medical institution itself and from state funds potentially, I think is one avenue to pursue. And I'll work closely with our state reps and federal representatives to make sure that we find ways to do that. We need more hands on deck. We need more people there to provide that measure of safety so that medical providers can do their jobs.
And Mike Newman, your comments, please.
Thank you, Ann. There is a problem with our ERs right now because of the homeless, mentally ill, and just regular people having accidents and going in or feeling ill. We do have that problem, but when it's exacerbated by those that need help, we need to have a separate area for it. And I know that it's being worked on now. I've talked to Roberta of the hospital, St. Joseph Providence, and it's being worked on at this point collaboratively with law enforcement, DHHS, and several other agencies to help alleviate that problem so that people, as well as nurses, I've talked to a nurse while I've been out campaigning, knocking on doors, that was assaulted. And she quit her dream job being an ER nurse because of that. And it wasn't just physical abuse, it was also mental abuse.
To close our program, we will now hear a closing statement from each candidate in summation. I did want to just mention to the candidates that one question I wasn't able to get to, a phone-in member of the community asked whether you would be a unifier or a bridge between differences. I thought that was I wanted to get that in and I didn't have an opportunity for it. So we will begin with our closing statements from Kim Bergel.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having us. This has been really delightful and educational, and I appreciate all of you that are watching. You know, I am definitely a bridge builder. I have always been a bridge builder. I think it's really important that we have important conversations and that people feel heard. And that's why I really feel like accessible government is not only important, it's critical in moving our region forward. Since I've been on council for 7.5 years. During that time, many of you have seen me out meeting people where they're at. And I'm not just talking about homeless population. I'm talking about meeting people where they're at community events and listening to them, doing cleanups, trying to going to dances, doing all the things in our community that aren't only fun but necessary, and engaging and supporting and celebrating the people in our community who work so hard to make it a better place. And you know, as your supervisor, I will continue to be there for you, to hear what you have to say, and to just, you know, let you know that all people have value and all voices are important. And I've lived that, and I continue to live that. I've lived in Humboldt my whole life. I've raised my children here. I want to stay here. I want them to stay here. And we're at this really great time right now with, you know, I know that COVID is still sort of happening, but we're getting a chance right now to re-see what we want to be when, you know, we get to start over. You know, with COVID, we've had a lot of downtime to really think about our priorities and what we want and what we need. And now is the time to start implementing those ideas and work together and to get involved. Because a community of 5 people sitting on the dais, that really isn't the best way to make decisions. We need everybody involved, everybody, regardless of class, regardless of poverty, regardless of how much money you make. It's just important that we all work together. Thank you. Vote Kim Bergel, June 7th.
Natalie Arroyo, your closing comment, please. Your closing statement.
Well, I bring a lot of love for this place and its people and the diverse experience and capabilities that we need. Whether it's my nonprofit role in natural resources management and bringing millions in funding into our community over the last 15 years, my service in the Coast Guard Reserve as a veteran and officer, where I deeply understand maritime operations and disaster response, and what it's like to be a leader in a very hierarchical organization, to Cal Poly Humboldt and my teaching role there. I also serve on the board of the Klamath River Renewal Corporation, which is dedicated to taking out 4 dams in the Klamath River, which is near and dear to my heart. I also play roller derby, and I'm a rutabaga queen, so I like to have fun in this community too. I'm not just all business all the time. I've been endorsed by many folks in the community that really speak to my strong relationships, and those include the Yurok Tribe, the Time Standard, Congressman Jared Huffman, Assemblymember Jim Wood, the Humboldt County Democratic Central Committee, many unions and organized labor groups, and many local medical workers, business owners, teachers, and many of my neighbors. So I'm really providing the opportunity for forward-looking change in the district, and I think it's a really important time and an exciting time to get out there and vote. I will bring a shift in direction to be more strategic and cohesive, and I would also, if elected, be the first Latina on the Board of Supervisors, which I think is important for representation and engaging more of our community. So you can visit arroyoforsupervisor.com. That's Arroyo, F-O-R, supervisor.com. And you can learn more about my campaign, and I'd love to hear from you in the coming weeks as you're thinking about who you'll vote for to bring Humboldt County forward.
Mike Newman, your closing statement, please.
Thank you, Ann. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and KEET for broadcasting this forum and for being here and these questions. I am a bridge builder. I got rid of the Republican Democrat status years back, I got disgusted with how the party system was working. I am a bridge builder. I am a listener of all sides before making any decisions. It's important to know that we cannot be partisan in this job. You have to look to all sides for communication as well as for input. It's important. I've been serving this district since 2010, first City Council. Then after that, I went on to the Measure Z committee, which was our half-cent sales tax countywide. That was to bring in extra money for the general fund to mainly help with public protection, with the police, fire, especially the rural fire. But the deputies were important, as well as helping the MIST program in Eureka. That was an innovative program that I was a part of, helping to form while on the City Council, to help DHHS and workers, social workers, get out with our police officers out on the streets so that they didn't have to try and be social workers themselves. I like to think outside of the box on economic issues. I stay here in this area. I moved up here in '83. I am a small business owner, past when I had my Allstate agency in the start of my insurance career. I work with businesses all the time. I have that at the forefront of my mind. And thank you. I appreciate your vote. Vote Mike Newman, June 7th.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. We got to go. Thank you for watching, and thank you, KEET-TV.